Hey Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, wife, mama of 3, and doctor of the PhD kind. On this podcast, we talk honestly about high achievement, burnout, and what it looks like to lead well across home, work, and self. So if you're an ambitious mother scholar who's quietly exhausted by the pace you've been keeping and starting to realize that survival isn't the same as success, this podcast is for you. Mrs. Mummy PhD began during my own PhD journey as a wife and mama. Today, as a postdoctoral scholarly mama working across 2 leadership roles, this work has evolved. It's no longer just about finishing the PhD well, it's about creating sustainable ways of learning, leading, and living at any stage of your journey without losing yourself in the process. If you are ready to move from survival to restoration, you're in the right place. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. You know what I wish I realized before is that you do not have to be falling apart completely to be running on empty. And this, I think, is so important for us as scholarly mamas to realize that some of the most productive moments in our lives are actually the moments we are absolutely overstretched and running on empty. And those are the moments of really high achievement where you are achieving the most. And as I reflected on this episode, which is all about 3 hidden reasons why mothers can sometimes burn out without even realizing it, is that's the subtle nature of this, that as high achieving mamas, we want to do it all. And yet sometimes the irony of it is that we are achieving it all. But when we look beneath the surface of that achievement, we're running on empty. We're doing the most and the demand doesn't meet the capacity, right? And so that's what we want to talk about in today's episode. So if this is your first time here, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. Over the last couple of episodes, we've talked about survival mode. We've talked about quiet burnout and what it means to lead ourselves differently. But today I want to talk about why sometimes as high achieving mamas, we don't often realize that we are quietly burning out. We just know that we feel really stretched. We're tired, but we're functioning. We're super busy, but we're still achieving. We're coping, but there's no real space to think. That's why I think sometimes burnout can be so quiet, because it doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it just looks like a life that's running on autopilot, that keeps going at a pace that's slowly costing you. So you don't even realize that this is happening. And so in today's episode, I wanted to share 3 reasons why you might be burning out without even realizing it as a high achieving mama, even if your life looks fine from the outside. So again, this is not a diagnosis. I am not a mental health professional. This is not clinical advice or medical advice of any kind. But I just want you to think about this as a way of just noticing and paying attention to what might be draining you more than you think. And so the first reason why you may be burning out and not realize it is decision fatigue. Oh my goodness. Especially as mamas, we are constantly making a million decisions. The mental load is real, right? From what to have for breakfast, what to pack for your kids' lunches, what needs signing, what documents need to be sent back, what meeting needs to be moved, what emails should I respond to first, what tone should I use, how should I structure that email, what time does this one need to be collected and that one need to be collected, and this one is an after school club but that one is not, and this one has got a football practice, or this one has got some other activity. From what to cook for dinner to what to say yes to, what to say no to, when to meet up with that friend, when to see that one. Oh my goodness, the amount of decisions that we make in a day is just completely endless. And that's before we even get to our actual work. And this kind of exhaustion is not physical exhaustion. You're not tired from physically doing all the things. It's just the cognitive load of it, like thinking about all of it, keeping track of all of it. And I'll give you a really practical example of what has actually made our family routine so much more sustainable. And it begins with breakfast. Now, I don't like to have the same thing for breakfast every day, so I want to keep that varied. But if left to my own devices, I probably would wait till I wake up and then decide, what do I want to have for breakfast? And one of the things that we've done in our house is actually to remove the decision from breakfast and what we're going to have for breakfast. We have a breakfast routine. So we have certain days. The boys will tell you what they will have for breakfast on certain days. We don't have to go in the fridge and think about, what do we want to have for breakfast? What do we feel like having today? No, that's already programmed into our weekly routine. And so everybody gets up and it's one less decision we need to make. And that has literally transformed our week so that we are able to wake up with a calm mind, not rushing, not stressed, not worrying about who wants this and this person wants this for breakfast and that person wants that for breakfast. No, everybody knows in the house, depending on what day it is, what they're going to have for breakfast. So whether that is porridge or whether that is cereal or whether that is eggs and toast or whatever it is, we already know based on the day of the week what we're going to have for breakfast. And that makes our lives so much easier because it has removed the decision barrier from our morning. Because that constant mental switching, the emotional labor of it, the invisible planning, that makes you more tired and exhausted than we can even put words to. So this kind of tiredness, when you are mentally exhausted, when you are cognitively exhausted, when the mental load of all of it is too much, it can manifest as being irritable all the time, having foggy thinking, snapping at things more easily, wanting to withdraw from group activities or family activities, struggling to make even tiny decisions. Like, have you ever felt like the tiniest decision requires the most mental effort? That's what happens when we are decision fatigued. This is not because we're weak. This is not because we're not able to make decisions. We're very intelligent women. But this is a load issue. This is where we're carrying too much. We're just tired of having to make all these decisions, tired of having to keep track of all these things that need to be decided upon. And so what do? We just avoid. We avoid making decisions, or we over deliberate very simple decisions. So here's a gentle leadership question for you this week. Where could you remove or simplify one decision? Where could it just be easy? And I think even with the breakfast example in our own family, what that has done is it just has made breakfast easy, because I am the sort of person, breakfast is not my favorite meal of the day. I have to say, I could easily skip it. But I think that it just making it easy, removing the barrier of having to decide what to have for breakfast, just makes that easy. It's not about optimizing it or making the perfect breakfast or making the perfect decision, but just to lighten the load a little bit. So maybe that's having the same thing, for a couple of days. Maybe that's, you've got a system as to what day of the week you wear a certain color, so you don't have to go into your closet and decide what you want to wear that day. Just one less thing to think about every day. For me, that's leadership. That's you putting a system in place that removes the barrier, removes the roadblock, the mental block of having to make a particular decision. And so that has really helped us, and that has extended to other areas of our lives as well, not just breakfast. That's just one example I've shared, but implementing these systems and routines helps those decisions to be more sustainable, because now you're removing the need and the barrier to have to make those decisions. So we eliminate the decision fatigue by putting systems in place that help us reduce the need to make decisions every time. The second reason why you may be quietly burning out is the obsession with productivity. Now, I've talked about this so many times on the podcast, but I think we are particularly at risk of this as mums, as professionals, as scholars. We're very good at measuring ourselves by our output. And I've spoken before about the difference between output And outcomes, for me, outputs are the tangible, evidence of effort. Whereas outcome is who are you actually becoming on the journey to achieving that thing. So we are so good at measuring ourselves by output. What did we get done in that certain time? If we sat down to say we're going to write a manuscript or write something, what did we actually achieve in that time? We need to see that we've written something. Otherwise, we feel like we've wasted our time. Not accounting for the fact that we all need thinking time, and thinking is productive. Thinking is productive. Reflecting is productive. Rest is productive. These are the things that we often overlook as high achieving mamas who are measuring ourselves by output and obsessed with productivity. And so another question we may ask ourselves is, what did I finish? What did I actually take off my list? What did I cross off? Right? And slowly, without noticing, our worth gets so tangled up in what we can produce. So we become obsessed with production. So even rest becomes functional. Even we incorporate rest so that we can get the energy to work harder, so that we can pause and then push again. We can stop only to start again, but harder. We can rest only to get better at what we are producing. And so we feel guilty for not being productive, or we feel like we cannot fully switch off, because if we fully switch off, it means we're not producing. And so here's the quiet trap. The quiet trap is that if rest only exists so that you can be more productive, then that isn't restoration. That is just maintenance. That is you taking a pit stop only to get back on the road and back in the race. And so that's why so many high achieving mamas will say, I've had time off and I've come back to work and I'm still tired. I'm still tired. Because the system did not change. You've pressed the pause button, which is great, but that's about it. And so in terms of what you can try this week, try doing one thing that has nothing to do with output. Something that doesn't have a goal attached to it. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Maybe that's a walk. Maybe that's just sitting and just reflecting, meditating, praying. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's just staring out of the window. I do that sometimes. I literally will stand and stare out of my window, partly to rest my eyes and give my eyes a break from being on the screens, but also just a bit of time to detach from the task I'm doing and just be for a moment, just be. So not to recover from the work I'm doing and not to, recharge my battery so I can go again, but to remember that I am a person, I am a human being, I am not a machine. I cannot just keep producing all the time. I need to have an opportunity to just be. And so I want you to try that this week. Try doing something that doesn't actually have an output. There's nothing to show at the end of it other than you've just been. You've just been. And so the third reason that you may be burning out quietly without even knowing it is where you're not making enough time for what matters. And I think this is really important, that burnout isn't always about doing too much. Yes, it can be a capacity issue. Yes, it can be where you've taken on probably more than you've got the capacity to. And that's true. But I think sometimes it's also about not doing enough that has meaning. So you're not giving yourself any time to think and reflect. You're not spending time with the people that you love without rushing and hurrying. You're not doing the things that make you feel like you. Life just becomes a vicious cycle of responding, reacting, meeting needs, ticking boxes, and slowly what matters most gets pushed back and postponed and pushed into the margins of your life. One of the things that I love to do when I'm reading a paper or making notes, or even sometimes if I'm marking something, I'm a fill in all the margins type of girl. I will be scribbling all over that paper. I'll be highlighting things, making notes. And when I look back at that, because I'm quite a visual learner as well, so when I look back at that, I feel like I've experienced that paper. I've experienced that whatever it is I'm reading, because I have made my mark on it. I've jotted my notes in the margins. I've highlighted, I've underlined, I've circled, I've just been all over it, right? And I love looking back at that when I've read a paper that, when I can see lots of notes in the margins, I feel like, yeah, I've truly been through this paper. But there comes a point sometimes where there's no more space. There's no more space in the margins. There's no more space to scribble and write. And it just feels too full. And sometimes life is like that, where you're overflowing to the point where there's no more space left for what matters. All the energy and the time and attention is gone. There's nothing left to give. And this happens when we're really, really busy. And sometimes, even with all of that, we can still feel really empty. So the question isn't, how can I fit more into my margins or even push things that matter into the margins? But it's more of, what do I keep putting into the margins that actually sustains me? That doesn't need to be in the margins. It needs to be in the main text. It needs to be in the body of that life of yours. I think one of the things that has helped me with this is making space to bring some of those things that have been pushed into the margins back into my protected time, protected space within my week. So this isn't about having a perfect schedule or anything like that, but where can I prioritize the things that matter to me? Where can I make space for those things that really revitalize me and give me purpose and meaning and give life meaning, right? And where can I bring some of those things from the margins back onto the main? Because decision fatigue drains your capacity, right? You will feel like your capacity is sapped to zero when you're spending all of your time and energy making decisions day in, day out. It becomes exhausting. Productivity, obsession, or being obsessed with output drains your identity, because suddenly you become the output. You become what you produce. And actually, when you stop producing, you have no idea who you are anymore, because you've been so stuck in this cycle of constant production. And when you've got a minute to yourself where you're not producing, you're not doing, you're not achieving, then you feel lost. You feel like, oh my goodness, I need to find something else to do. And so productivity obsession, it drains identity. Lack of meaning drains your motivation. If you are constantly filling your page with things that have very little meaning, when I say page, I'm using a metaphor of like a page being your life. You are filling that with things that have little meaning or significance, or things that don't bring you fulfillment. That will drain your motivation eventually, right? And so these three things together create a life that functions well, but doesn't feel truly lived, right? And it's not just a busy season. We say that to ourselves all the time. Oh, it's just a busy season, that things will get back to normal soon. Once I achieve this, then things will slow down and settle down. Once I get past the next milestone, once I achieve the next thing. Actually, sometimes that never comes, because you're just on to the next thing after that. And so here's a reframe that I want to offer you, that you're not ungrateful. This is not a gratitude problem. This is not a personal failure. This is not that you are bad at managing life or anything like that. This is just an opportunity to lead ourselves differently, right? Not leading others, that will come, but leading ourselves first differently, right? And ask yourself, what kind of life am I designing? And how do I want my life to look? So instead of trying to think, oh my goodness, I need to fix out everything, my life is falling apart. Or maybe you think, actually, my life is going great, but actually it is actually falling apart. Who knows, right? Instead of trying to fix all this stuff, here are 3 small, sustainable ways that you can begin to lead yourself differently. So I said earlier, reduce the number of decisions in the day. Where can you implement systems to help you reduce the number of decisions that you have to make, to have one less thing to think about, one less decision, one less choice, one less thing? Where can you reduce at least one daily decision? Maybe that's breakfast. Maybe that's dinner. Maybe that's what you're going to wear. Who knows? Whatever it is, where can you put a system in place to help you eliminate that decision? Where can that thing become easier, right? Through developing a system to help you reduce the decision fatigue. The second thing is to create one non-productive pocket of time, even if it's just 10 minutes at the beginning of your day or at the end of the day, whenever it is, where you just give yourself a bit of space to not be achieving anything, not be solving somebody's problem, not be meeting somebody's need, not be ticking somebody's box, but just time for you to just be for just 10 minutes a day. Maybe that's writing in a journal. Maybe that's just 10 minutes in a bath. Maybe that's just 10 minutes of doing something you love, reading a book that you've always wanted to finish. Maybe that's just going for a walk and taking in the fresh air and noticing and breathing and just being. Where can you create one little non-productive pocket of time? And then the third thing is, where can you move that from the margin and into the main? And I submit to you that when you are quietly burning out, it's very hard to see where you can make the space for all of this. You may think, oh my goodness, I need to be more disciplined or I need to become a new person. But I think for me, it just starts with just making space to be human and just noticing that there are things that you can do that are within your power to begin to lead yourself differently. I really hope that this episode has been helpful, that you've got something out of it, some tangible ideas that you can try this week. And if you know someone who would, benefit from listening to this podcast episode, please do share it with them. I hope you have a wonderful week and I will see you in the next episode. Until next time, take care, Mama. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, I want you to know this. You don't need to have it all figured out before you take your next step. This work is all about learning to lead yourself first in ways that honor your capacity, your work, your home, and yourself without burning out in the process. If you'd like to continue the conversation beyond the podcast, you're warmly invited to join Scholarly Mamas The Letter, a quiet monthly newsletter for mother scholars who value purpose beyond titles, presence at home, and peace within. You can sign up at scholarlymamas.com. And if you're feeling stuck, stretched, or just not where you want to be, you can book a free 30-minute call to help you gain clarity and explore what support might look like in this season to get from where you are to where you want to be. You can also connect with me on social media at Mrs. Mummy PhD, where I share reflections on ambition, motherhood, sustainable self-leadership, all the things, for high-achieving mamas like yourself. This, Mama, is the quiet work of scholarly motherhood, and these are our journeys of becoming.